Next up, Shannon's going to be talking with Carrie Gove and Mike Edwards, executive directors for Ripple Ministries in Everett, talking about their ministry services and the organization's Teen Storytellers Project. Shannon O'Kelly, Carrie, and Mike.
Mike and Carrie, welcome to Health Talk. How are you today?
Great. Thank you.
And Mike, you're doing good too?
Yes, we're doing great.
Yeah, we're sharing one mic here. We have Mike and Carrie here with Ripple Ministries. And we're going to talk about Ripple Ministries in just a moment. Let's just talk about why you're here in the first place. From my perspective, let's just set this up. You guys do some pretty cool stuff with some ministry and some youth in the area. And we know, particularly in the last 2 years with this pandemic, it's pretty apparent from what we see in the media that there's been a lot of struggles, both adults, children. There's a lot of stuff going on out there. We need a lot of help in our society right now. And this is Health Talk. And what we've been talking a lot about health in today's world is the mental health needs. You know, it's just not the physical health. Obviously, me being a physical therapist, that's what I do. I do movement. But also I know with our patients, we talk about the soft skills here at IRG. So I'm always interested in talking to folks that are trying to help society. So tell us about Ripple Ministries, and I'm going to ask you guys to talk about who you are. Who wants to tell us about Ripple Ministries? Go ahead, Carrie. You're on.
I'll give you a start. We got this started back in 2017. I used to run a drop-in youth center. And when you talk about mental health, it really did strike me that a lot of kids were struggling. And this is before COVID. They were struggling with usually how they were performing in school. And a lot of had a lot to do with how much support they had coming from home and their learning styles. And what we really began to think is, could we do something that's going to give these kids some self-esteem so they're not getting kind of dragged off into the groups of people that are going to say, oh, let's go do this or, get in trouble or whatever. So we're trying to keep these kids on the straight and narrow, but we really felt like they needed a kinetic learning experience. And then we started thinking about what is the best thing to do all that, because social skills are important. You're dealing with kids with ACEs, so adverse childhood experiences.
Right.
Mentorship is super important. What's something that combines all that? And what we came up with was filmmaking, because it's incredibly collaborative. You have an opportunity for wonderful caring mentors, and they're doing something creative. And I'm going to let Mike speak to that more, but about storytelling, super important in a kid's life.
Carrie, while you're on the mic here, tell us about your background. I mean, I love the philosophy. I love the connectivity. I love when you use words like kinetic learning. There's so many kids that maybe just aren't able to sit in a classroom and you're just focused, right? I was one of those kids. If it wasn't for a wood shop or a metal shop relief for me in high school, I probably would have struggled in school. And, but having that relief where I could move because I'm a hyperactive guy. And when you say kinetic learning, these kids are hands-on learning, right? So what is your background?
So actually, I started my college degree is in radio, television, broadcasting, actually from the University of Washington, the last class to graduate in that in 1983. I was able to do 2 internships, actually one for Como TV and one for Cairo TV, both in the magazine aspect. And what I learned from that was the first time for me as a student, as a young person, to experience incredible collaboration. I'd never seen that, even as a student. It was fantastic to be part of. Stuck with me forever, even though I didn't end up in television, really stuck with me. And then as I began working with youth, I just saw, we did a little bit of homeschooling. So I learned a lot about learning styles and how to teach my own kids and what was the best way for them to learn. And then it all kind of congealed when I began working with youth at a teen drop-in center that actually Mike hired me to do. He was the youth pastor at that time. We go back, our lives are entwined for many years. And I just saw these kids, kids struggling, that weren't in the mainstream, or they weren't in a big club, or they didn't have a big sport that they participated in, and they were beginning to slip through the cracks. Yeah. And we wanted to do something more to encourage them. And that's when we came up with our idea, what we do and how we started. We just started with 4 kids in a borrowed church library on Friday afternoons. And now we've taught 80 plus kids. 80
plus kids. Started when? When did this thing launch, Ripple Ministries?
We launched in January of 2019, our very first class.
4 kids, and you have 80 kids now, and probably growing.
Yeah, or have interacted with 80 kids.
Yeah.
We keep our classes small on purpose, 6 kids to 8 kids to a class. We are not about trying to get a whole bunch of information into kids' heads. It is about the interaction.
More with Shannon O'Kelly, Carrie Gove, and Mike Edwards next on Como.
It's a Northwest Lifestyle Weekend on Como News. This is IRG's Health Talk. Back to Tom Hutler and Shannon O'Kelly.
Our conversation continues with Carrie Gove and Mike Edwards on Como.
Again, I'm joined here today with Carrie and Mike from Ripple Ministries. Ripple Ministries, we found out from Carrie, thank you so much, is a digital art kind of class engagement for the youth. Mike, tell us what your role is and your background. I'm excited because you're kind of the hands-on here.
Yeah, I take a more hands-on approach with the program itself, which is the Teen Storyteller Project component of Ripple Ministries. My job is to help with the classes and make sure that the kids are getting in the door, doing the things that really Carrie talked about, engaging them primarily through mentorship and relationship is our primary goal. And we know that statistically speaking, when every adult interaction that's positive and can turn into real relationship and mentorship per each kid, that the likelihood of a positive outcome of a child becoming useful adult in our society, the odds of that happening go through the roof.
That's so true, Mike. I think we can all think back to that one person, maybe that one teacher that had influence on us and changed our trajectory. Tell me, how do you guys identify these kids to come into this program? Is this something how do you get the message out?
Two ways is we work through the school districts and advertise through the advertising channels that were allotted in the school districts, and we also work with the juvenile justice system and specifically with JDAI and work with kids that are in that program for various reasons. And again, we want to be positive adult role models for those kids, just like you were saying, is if we can make that connection with them one time, but what we're hoping multiple times, and that they would want to come back. And really the storytelling element of this filmmaking is kind of the vehicle, but the goal is first relationship and then to empower them to tell their story.
So you're filming them, so they're making a film of their story. They're scripting it and talking about their experience. So it's a little bit of is it kind of almost like relief or counseling, or I don't want to call it counseling because it's really not counseling. How would you describe it? What do most of them tell stories about? If you can think off top.
We have a full range. There's a lot of comedy. A lot of kids love comedy.
Yeah.
A lot of them are specifically documentary style.
Documentaries, yeah, I like that. Okay.
And we come up with neat interactions with our community to say to the kids, like, hey, would you be interested in interviewing this person? And really unique, fun connections are made where kids are learning about downtown Snohomish.
Yeah.
And doing something they never would have been interested in, but they're fully engrossed.
Wow.
And in that relationship and that conversation, and then they make a film.
I just have to say, I just absolutely love this stuff, and what a unique, different approach that I wouldn't never even think about taking. Tell me just real quick, just give me a testimonial. What have you seen? How have you changed lives?
I would just basically say we've seen kids come in super shy. We even had one gal come in, just hung her head the whole first class, and within two sessions, she was giggling and talking. And,
I love it.
We won't share names, but she's completely engaged now.
Carrie and Mike, thank you so much for coming in, and thank you for what you do.
You've been listening to Carrie Gove and Mike Edwards, the executive directors for Ripple Ministries in Everett. And Shannon, this is something that with the Teen Storytellers Project is really important for youngsters these days.
It's amazing, Tom. It's a technique, and it's creative, and it allows these teens to tell their story. And sometimes if they're struggling, it releases or gets them to open up. I'm really impressed with it.
We're anxious to hear more about that, too, in the coming days. Thanks again to them for being with us today. Our final segment coming up right after this timeout on Como.